This video is kind of evolving. I went out to the range this morning to show the differences between 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor. Well, I got my truck stuck in the mud. Called my dad out to see if he could tow me out. He brings his truck and he gets stuck in the mud. So 2 Rams stuck in the mud. It's starting to look like a Ford commercial. Then we drive up to the place that we can film, and there were 3 geese that had been left to waste. They'd been shot. No meat was taken off of them and just laid to waste. And so I had to call the DNR and report that. It was just a mess this morning. So today we're talking about 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor. These cartridges, in my mind, are totally different. But you'd be forgiven for kind of feeling like it's a flip of a coin between them. You know, almost every production hunting rifle is chambered in both of these options. So how do you pick between 2 cartridges that are both very efficient powder burners? They're both short actions. They're both cheap to shoot. They both have modest recoil. They both fit in an AR-10 platform. They both have a .473 inch rim diameter, max PSI of 62,000. They both work well in short-barreled rifles. They both shoot about the same velocity, same trajectory out to 350 yards. They're ubiquitous, and they're also very commonly recommended as ladies or light-framed shooters guns or a range gun. So first, just the generic how does it feel kind of test. We're kicking this one over to Emily to see what the ladies would like to shoot.
Okay.
What'd you think?
I'm a little underwhelmed.
Like what? Too much power? Still?
No, not quite enough, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've given birth, and I think I could give a bigger push than that.
Today's video is brought to you by Masterworks. Today it's essential for us to not only protect our rights, but also to protect your money. Normally, people's income from passive investments would help ease the pain of the higher living costs that we're experiencing, but unfortunately, times look pretty tough for the stock market, at least in the short term. Well, you could put some of it into buying investments outside the stock market, like fine art. Some fine art has outpaced the growth of the S&P 500 over the last 26 years. Masterworks is a company that buys expensive art pieces from artists like Banksy and Picasso, then breaks it up into smaller, affordable shares, and you can read all the offerings circulars at the SEC database linked in the description. This isn't crypto or NFT, this is actual fine art. Just in the last 3 months, Masterworks has returned 13, 17, 21, and 30% IRR to investors from the sale of 4 works. Past performance is no guarantee of future results, but it's impressive in an economy like this. Paintings have sold out in minutes in the past, but my viewers can get priority access by clicking the link in the description. Thank you to Masterworks. We're going to have a little bit of a contest here, giving points between 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor as we go. When I think of the differences between them, to me the biggest difference by far in terms of use case is the 308 is just better at killing than a 6.5 Creedmoor. In a hunting context, if we're shooting about the same velocity, well, the 308 is usually using a little bit of a heavier bullet, and I think very importantly, it has a bigger frontal diameter. So you think about just how much meat it's going to tear up in there, right? I mean, if they're traveling about the same velocity, then the one that has a larger frontal surface area is going to make a big difference. I mean, it's 35% bigger, that 308 caliber, compared to the 264 or 6.5 millimeter caliber. And then you consider that, you know, they're going to open up in that meat, right? So it's going to about caliber and a half at least, sometimes 2 times caliber, the expansion that it was. And so one that started bigger gets exponentially larger than the 6.5 Creedmoor. That's one that is very difficult to show on ballistics gel tests because it's pretty hard to cut open that ballistics gel, and that ballistics gel is springy, right? So it doesn't always show you the full wound in there. There used to be some wax tubes that people would use for ballistics testing where you could see the exact pattern. Man, if anybody knows where I can get some of those, I would love to show some of these in wax that I think would just show off a lot better than ballistics gel. So number 1 point goes to the 308. But that's not to knock the 6.5 Creedmoor on hunting. I've killed a ton of animals with 6.5 Creedmoor. It's a hunting cartridge, it's fine. Deer-sized game and down, I have no problem hunting with the 6.5 Creedmoor. But a lot of people will use the 308 to step up to elk-sized game. It wouldn't be my first pick, but I think it would be a fine choice for not too far of a shot on elk. And so I just think 308 is a better killing cartridge. The second point goes to the 308 again, because it's cheaper to shoot. This one's huge. On average, a box of 308 is going for $16 less than 6.5 Creedmoor. With ammo prices going as insane as they are, anything you can do to save on ammo makes a big difference. Now, there are some nuances here, okay? First, if you reload, it's not really going to matter much, except that you probably are going to find 308 brass a little bit more available if you're looking for the kind of cheap production brass. It's kind of weird that 308 is cheaper because, I mean, it's a tiny bit more powder, it's a bigger bullet. There's just more component in the 308. It's just a bigger bullet, right? But the 6.5 Creedmoor, though a little bit less in actual raw material that goes in there, is still not quite as common as the 308. Eventually, over time, I think this difference is going to wear away and there will be no difference between them. Or maybe even the 6.5 Creedmoor could get cheaper over time because it's so ubiquitous now that companies are going to be producing more and more of it. But even when you look at, the lines of the exact same ammo, Precision Hunter or Federal, whatever, you still see the 308 is a little bit less than that 6.5 Creedmoor, can add up over time. Next point goes to the 6.5 Creedmoor for being light on recoil. In fact, it's about 30% less recoil than a 308 if everything else is equal. That's a big deal because it can help you to spot your impact in the scope. I don't really care about how it feels on my shoulder, but because both of them are reasonably lightweight, but being able to see what happened in the scope when you pulled the trigger is a big deal for me, and that's really what the 6.5 Creedmoor was all about originally. It was more of that target range gun because people wanted that light recoiling cartridge. So that is a big advantage, especially if this is kind of your trainer gun, one where you're just learning to shoot, a newer shooter, somebody that just wants to train. I think 6.5 Creedmoor is better for that because you'll learn the fundamentals, a little bit less likely to flinch, better at seeing what's in your scope. I think it's a better range gun. 6.5 Creedmoor also is better in the wind. If we're shooting a long distance shot, let's say 400 yards, if there's a strong wind out, 15 miles an hour, the 6.5 Creedmoor is going to drift 3 inches less than the 308. It's not a massive difference, but it is there. And the reason is the BC of the bullets is higher generally in the 6.5 Creedmoor compared to the 308 bullets. And the 6.5 Creedmoor sometimes is squeaking out, another 100 feet per second faster than the 308, which also is going to help there. Now, 3 inches at 400 yards in a stiff wind, not a real big deal, but it's there. If you care a lot about the wind, it's that kind of application, it's an advantage. Barrel life is one that I kind of hesitate to bring up in this context, but this point does go to the 308. So the 6.5 Creedmoor doesn't have short barrel life. Most people would say about 2,500 shots before your 6.5 Creedmoor barrel could start to lose a little accuracy. But the 308 barrel could go to 4,000 shots and more. They just last forever. And so for your average hunter, you're never going to shoot out either one. I mean, let's do a little math here. I'm pulling up my laptop. Let's say you're paying $50 a box for ammo, and that has 20 shots in it. So let's say it takes 2,500 shots to burn out your barrel. So after you spend $6,250 on ammo, then you'll have to worry about buying a new $500 barrel for your 6.5 Creedmoor. It's really not something to worry about for most shooters. However, if you're a competition shooter, a very high volume shooter, if you're shooting competition, first of all, your first 200 shots out of a barrel, it's still speeding up. We're still breaking in the barrel for the first 200 shots. And then every weekend that you shoot a competition, you're shooting about 150 to 200 shots for most competitions. And so, yeah, the barrel life does matter quite a lot. And so 308 lasting that long is awesome. Now, having said that, I don't see either of these cartridges in a lot of the very popular competitions right now, except for the 6.5 Creedmoor pretty much dominates the NRL Hunter competitions because it's the lightest recoiling cartridge you can get that meets the power factor. So 6.5 Creedmoor is probably used more in competition now than 308. The 308 does have the better barrel life, but you may be wondering why. Why does the barrel last a little bit longer? Well, despite burning maybe 4 or 5 grains more powder in the 308, it's using a larger caliber, a bigger space for that pressure to be in. And it's kind of the pressure in the caliber is how we are kind of determining how long that barrel is going to last. The smaller caliber with a lot of pressure and a lot of velocity getting out of there, that's going to burn out the barrel. The 308 lasts like forever. Oh, and fun fact on barrel life, I asked the owner of Voodoo Firearms here in St. George, they do competition high-end 22s. I asked him, I said, have you ever seen a 22 LR that got burned out? I just wondered at like some point would it ever happen? And he said he'd never seen it. Another point I feel goes to the 6.5 Creedmoor for something that's kind of between the lines in all of this. I think 6.5 Creedmoor is a more versatile cartridge than the 308. I still probably wouldn't pick a 308 to go elk hunting, though it's very common. And so for me, the 6.5 Creedmoor does all of the exact same things with better wind drift, less recoil. It's perfect for an NRL hunter competition. It's perfect for a new or light frame shooter. Apparently not my wife. She's happy to take the big stuff. In fact, she was like ranting all the way home. She was like, why do you guys shoot that? Like, you guys are huge. Why don't you just like take the recoil? Isn't it kind of fun? Anyway, I just think the 6.5 Creedmoor overall it fits more use cases for me than the 308 does. Now, having said that, I usually want rifles that I'm reviewing in 308 because it's cheaper to shoot. Hey, you guys, next week I'm going to SHOT Show just 2 hours from here in Las Vegas, and I'm going to have all the coverage just like the video I did last year showing all the new guns, everything. If you have questions you want me to ask people when I'm there, let me know, and I'm anxious to read in the comments kind of your opinions on 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor. Adios!